Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy you tuned in today and welcome back to Wellness Wednesday. I'm a naturopathic doctor right here in Iron River, and I specialize in helping people restore their health and revitalize their life. And always a little disclaimer, anything we talk about is for the purpose of general health support, not intended to treat or cure or give medical advice. We're just here to help educate and learn about overall health. Always consult with your primary care before making any health challenges, especially with what we're going to talk about today, which I'm so excited about. But last week, we talked about something really important and about how many people don't realize that they could actually be addicted to stress. So I created a helpful handout for you to do a little self-assessment. Many found it super helpful and realized that some of the questions they were asked, they didn't even realize that that was bringing stress into their life. So if you're looking for that first step, which is awareness, and you want to take that little self-assessment, just reach out on Facebook, Lindsay Say Larson, or you can email info@drlinzi.com and we can get that self-assessment over to you and you can have your first place of starting there. And so this morning, I want to talk about one of the topics that I feel is most misunderstood in medicine, which is cholesterol. And I get pretty passionate about this one. So because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding and misconception around it. And today I really want you guys to leave feeling educated about this, not so that you start or stop a medication. That's never the goal because we're not giving medical advice, but so that you have better questions, more information, so you can have a conversation with your primary care about what, or your cardiovascular, your cardiologist about what is best for you and your body. So likely if you've been told your cholesterol is, quote, high, and what does that even mean, right? Chances are the next conversation involved a statin medication, right? That's pretty standard. So today, nearly 1 in 7 Americans take a statin. That's crazy. And under the new cholesterol guidelines that were passed this year, it is estimated that more than half, 1 in 2 adults between the age of 30 and 79, will now qualify for a statin or to be recommended one. So this is ridiculous, guys, and this has me very concerned because with so many people taking statins, do you think that the number of heart attacks has gone down? The number of people diagnosed with cardiovascular disease has gone down. I mean, everybody should be all better. There should be no cardiovascular disease. There should be no heart attacks with this many people taking statins. Is that the case? Absolutely not. You want to know what is the case? Now, of course, there's a lot involved in this. I'm not saying it's just one thing, but what has skyrocketed in the last, I don't know, 50 years? A lot of things, but something that's very much correlated to the insane amount of statin use is Alzheimer's and dementia. That is off the charts right now, you guys. And a huge reason being the majority of our brain is made up of cholesterol. When you start trying to get that number as low as possible without actual research that proves it, just this old study that helped form the cholesterol hypothesis that I'll share with you, you start to do serious damage because your body absolutely needs cholesterol. It is not the villain that it is made out to be. Cholesterol is so important, and I'm going to explain that to you guys today. But I want to ask a couple questions first. So when we look at, with the new guidelines, potentially 1 in 2 Americans between the age 30 and 79 could be recommended or be on a statin. The question is, how did we get there? Yes, people are much more unhealthy than they ever were, but there's so much to it than that. And another perspective for you to think about is every time a treatment guideline expands millions more to be candidates for a lifelong medication, do you think that's just really for the best interests of you, the individual? Now, I'm not over here trying to spew some conspiracy theory to you, but I'm asking you to use some critical thinking. What is the biggest industry in the United States of America? The pharmaceutical industry, okay? And, why worry about coming out with new drugs, which they're still going to always do, when you could just create a guideline that literally increases your client base by the millions, and now 1 in 2 Americans will need the drug that you create. So do you really think that guideline, they did all these new studies, and this guideline is going to help save millions of people from heart attacks and cardiovascular disease? No, because it's already shown with 1 in 7 taking it, it's not doing that. So do you think maybe it has a little bit to do with the pocketbook of the pharmaceutical companies? Oh, ding, 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 ding. So this is exactly why you guys need to understand cholesterol, not just fear it. It's so important. And you have to start being your own health advocate and not just blindly following these guidelines or these boxes that you put you in, because it's not always your best interest in mind. So you have to start to take control. And what's also crazy is that, back in the day, before statins were invented, the range was about 250, 260 to 300. That's what was considered normal for a middle-aged adult, not anything to worry about. Then in the 1987 or 88 is when like the first statin pharmaceutical became available. And right before that became available, guess what they implemented? They implemented the guidelines that put you in a box that pretty much if you are over 200, you need a statin. Even the original one was even a little bit more, like you were considered borderline at 250, not this crazy like someone's 201 and they want to put you on a statin, but they created this box of this guideline because most people, the majority of the population is going to be between 250 and 300. So they're not going to have a huge client base. So if they lower that to 200, where did they even get that from? You just think a bunch of brilliant studies? No. They created this because the majority of the population is between 260 and 300. So if we get it to 200, we're going to get a decent amount of the population that's going to need to be on this statin. So the whole cholesterol hypothesis, which the cholesterol hypothesis is that you have high cholesterol, you're going to form plaque, you're going to die of a heart attack. So that what happened was back in the 50s, heart disease was exploding. And so researchers wanted, answers. So they started looking at it. And one of the most influential studies around this was a study called the 7 Countries Study, done by Ansel Keys. And so this study observed that populations consuming more saturated fat tended to have higher average cholesterol and then more coronary artery disease. So this literally became the foundation of what we call the diet heart hypothesis, or like the cholesterol hypothesis, which means they are saying that high saturated fat leads to higher cholesterol, and higher cholesterol leads to clogged arteries, and clogged arteries leads to heart attacks. So there's really something important I want you guys to understand here. This was observational. It showed an association. It did not prove that cholesterol in and of itself has a direct cause of heart disease, or automatically means because you have a cholesterol within this certain range, you're forming plaque and going to die of a heart attack. So this is a really important distinction, you guys, because association doesn't always automatically equal causation. And that simple thing allowed like doctors and everybody to villainize cholesterol. I even have patients who are very well aware of health and wellness, and they come to see me and they understand things, and they still literally have this fear response around, oh, my cholesterol. So I will say the powers that be did do a really good job instilling that fear and making people fear cholesterol. But I want to share a couple studies with you that may just open your perspective so you don't have to be so fearful. So this is one thing that can be good about science, is that good science should continue to ask questions and continue to keep looking at things. And so over the last several decades, researchers have learned that cardiovascular disease is much more complex than simply looking at a couple cholesterol numbers, you guys, which we're still doing. The standard medical model is like 20 plus years behind, if not more, on what's going on, you guys. It's so much more than cholesterol. We know it has to do with if you're actually forming plaque, things like chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, high blood sugar that goes along with the insulin resistance, smoking, blood pressure, obesity, your physical activity, stress. These all influence your cardiovascular risk. So it's not just, okay, you have a total cholesterol that's over 200 and now an LDL that's over 100, and they're trying to lower this even more, you guys, which is absolutely insane. Don't fall for it. Your brain and your body needs cholesterol. But so if you're over 200 with your total cholesterol, you're over 100 with your LDL, are you automatically forming plaque? Are you clogging your arteries? Are you going to die of a heart attack? No, you guys. Now, that doesn't mean that you ignore it. It's still an important marker with the whole overall picture. Now, if you have significantly elevated cholesterol and LDL and your triglycerides, which is even more important than any of the other numbers, because that's the fattiness of your blood. And if your triglycerides are off the chart, you're significantly overweight, you have diabetes, you're not working out, you're sedentary, like, are you more of a ticking time bomb for forming plaque? Yes. And that is a conversation you need to have with your doctor. But also, you guys, I want you to understand that out of all the labs I've ever followed or looked at clinically, the ones that respond the most to diet and lifestyle are cholesterol and triglycerides. So, why are we starting with a statin? Why don't it's not like I have to make a decision now that I have to start taking the medication today because of these numbers. It's like, oh, I'm noticing that this is climbing up. Okay, this could contribute to a risk. Let me take the next 90 days, the next 3 months, and really focus on my nutrition and moving my body, and then reevaluate the numbers. And what you'll see is that they'll come right down. Now, let's say you have a significant family history, and I will point out my little soapbox here. I love when people say, oh, genetics, family history. No, more often, you guys have to remember genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So when people say they have a family history, they have a family history of patterns. They have a family history of habits. Usually it's not just the genetics. You can be more prone to things, but it's usually within the family is unhealthy eating. Within the family is being sedentary. And then over here you have families who are very active and they choose healthy lifestyles. They're going to have less of those things. So I don't really fall for for the family history. What else runs in the family? The habits and the lifestyle, right? But if there is, let's say, a significant family history and you are concerned and things are elevated, but you don't want to just jump to taking a medication right away, you can do other tests to see, am I actually forming plaque? Is plaque actually a problem that's taking place in my body? So you can do a calcium score. That is a really easy, super easy one to see, because if you have an elevated calcium score, there's likely a chance that your body is forming plaque. You can also do a coronary CT angiograph, which is pretty simple as well. You can do ultrasound of the carotids, which really actually sees if plaque is a problem. And then you can do additional blood work to see your true risk. You can do something called LP little a, lipoprotein A, which is really shown when that is elevated, it can be a significant cardiovascular risk. You can look at ApoB, which measures actually how arthrogenic the particles are. You can actually even do full lipoprotein particle analysis to see the size of your particle. Because more importantly than what your total cholesterol or your LDL is the size of your particle. Because if you have really tiny particle sizes, you're going to be more likely to form plaque. And that cholesterol number is a little bit more important. You can also look at inflammation, things like HSCRP that we've talked about. You can look at fasting insulin, your hemoglobin A1C, your blood sugar, all of those to see what your overall metabolic picture looks like, to see if you're actually at risk. I know my dad hates when I throw him under the bus on the radio, but 30 years ago or more now, they wanted to put my dad on a statin. And because his cholesterol was 250 and his LDL was a little high too. And he was just like, no, like, I'm not going to do that. He's so wise, so ahead of his time. And if he would have taken that, the one drug that will age you 10 times faster than any other drug is a statin. And why I feel my dad is so healthy, and I won't say his age because he gets mad at me, but he doesn't look his age, okay, you guys? And he is healthy and active, and he's still working like he did, 20 years ago. And like it's amazing. And he isn't on any medication. And they wanted to put him on that statin 30 years ago, which would have totally changed the trajectory of his health and his aging. But the thing is like, that's his normal. So literally over 30 years, his cholesterol has never really changed. It's been at 250. So what if we put people in these boxes like, you need to be below 200? Why? I bet because his normal is 250, if he went below 200, he'd feel like crap. He'd have brain fog. His muscles would hurt. All the things that people often experience. And also, he went to this, before I started naturopathic medical school, or knew all the things that I know, right? He went to this holistic health clinic and did this whole like week-long thing. And then he, to get his blood sugar, so he reversed his blood sugar. They told him he had diabetes. He reversed it. He does not have diabetes. He lost 30 pounds. He did P90X. Those of you who work out know that that's a pretty tough one. Went to town, got his blood work done. Guess what? His cholesterol went up 2 points. And thankfully the doctor was quite, a good doctor. And he was like, well, geez, you did P90X and you did, like, your blood sugar is great. Your cholesterol went up 2 points. You're probably not going to have a heart attack. I think you're good. You know what I mean? Like, no, you don't need a statin. Like, and he has done different scans and things, like I mentioned, that you can do. So plaque is not an issue. So if your body is not forming that plaque, if your body is not inflamed, if your blood sugar is good, if you're moving your body, why are we obsessed with this cholesterol these markers being below a certain point? Because guys, I want you to understand what cholesterol actually does in the body. It doesn't just form plaque. It's not just this demon that is in there forming plaque. A lot of people don't know that your liver manufactures cholesterol every single day. And your body actually works incredibly hard to make it because cholesterol is absolutely essential. It builds every cell in your body. It helps produce vitamin D. It's the raw material for every hormone in your body, you guys. So literally estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, your bile acids for digestion, like you need cholesterol. And the other key one is your brain. Your brain contains a tremendous amount of cholesterol, you guys, because cholesterol helps with all of the nerve cells, the myelin, and it's actually your brain is actually the most cholesterol rich organ in your body. And it's absolutely necessary to have a good amount of cholesterol to maintain the integrity and the function of your brain as you age and throughout life. So it's absolutely supporting your learning and your memory through this neuronal communication. So literally, you guys, without cholesterol, you wouldn't live. And what also drives me nuts, and I'm going to share this next research that kind of goes against the cholesterol hypothesis, is that so as you age, if you're a woman going through perimenopause, menopause, or a man, it's called andropause, you do start losing some of your testosterone and all that. So you're going through this, your body's shifting. Do you think you need more or less cholesterol to help you make the hormones, especially with females, because now your ovaries aren't working? So you have to make these hormones. So then these middle-aged women or these middle-aged men, they get put on a statin because their quote cholesterol is too high. Do you think it's part of nature's design that as you age and as you go through these life changes that you might actually need a little bit more cholesterol, and it might actually be physiologically helpful for your cholesterol to start to tick up a little bit to maybe you were at 200, now you're at 220, now you're at 230? Might that be helpful for you because your body's needing to protect your brain more, protect you from injury with your cellular structure, and help you make more hormones? And instead, we're over here taking a drug that is literally blocking your energy production and then jamming your cholesterol into the tank. And then how are you supposed to make your hormones? It is wild. And so there's some research that's been done over the last, like this one is from I think 2016. So this is well known, you guys. So this was a study that looked at a large population, and they found that people whose cholesterol remained low. Okay, listen to this. So the study found, this was a big study, thousands and thousands of people, that people whose cholesterol remained persistently low or whose cholesterol declined significantly over time had a higher risk of overall death than those whose cholesterol remained stable. Not just cardiovascular or heart, overall mortality, all-cause mortality. That's a big deal, you guys. So they concluded that a spontaneous decline in cholesterol may actually be a marker of worsening health rather than something that is beneficial. So in other words, sometimes low cholesterol is actually a signal that something else is happening in the body and not necessarily a sign of better health. And I'll never forget this patient that came in, and she wanted all these supplements for her gut health and her brain health because she was so brain fogged. And I'm like, you're already taking so much stuff. Like, let's look at this picture here. And she brought me her blood work. Guess what her total cholesterol was? Just guess. What do you think her total cholesterol was?
200.
It was 98.
Oh.
Okay, she was on 2 statin medications. She was on another one, but it made her sick. And the doctor thought that was great. And she is about a mid 60-year-old female. She's struggling with her hormones. She has massive brain fog, no energy, her muscles hurt, and she's losing her brain and her memory. Her cholesterol's at 98. What do you think is happening to her brain and her cells and her hormones? I'm like, you don't need another 10 supplements. You need a normal cholesterol. You need your cholesterol to be at least 200 and you would feel a million times better. I mean, that is so upsetting. And then I noticed on her lab, not all labs do this, but this was a year ago. Her lab, the range, right now, everyone has the number 200 in their head for total cholesterol. It lowered it to 175 on the lab range, said normal was below 175. So what is it going to be? They're just going to keep jamming it so they down into the tank so they can prescribe more medication, but everybody's going to have dementia and their muscles are going to be wasting away? Like, what are we doing? I have another study for you guys. So this study was a systemic review, systematic review, which looks at lots of studies for adults over the age of 60. The researchers found that higher LDL, so I'm bringing up LDL because that's the one that's, quote, the bad cholesterol, right? You guys, that's the bad one. So they found that higher LDL was not associated with higher overall mortality. It was actually associated with lower overall mortality. So this findings suggested and challenged the traditional cholesterol hypothesis and suggested that current recommendations for cholesterol-lowering medications in older adults deserve continued evaluation. Do you understand? This was also a huge systematic review. And they found that and this was all-cause mortality, not just cardiovascular disease, not just heart attack. If your LDL was higher as you aged, you had a lower all-cause mortality. You had a lower chance of dying from every possible thing. So what these studies like this are showing us, you guys, is that cholesterol is actually protective. It's protecting you. Now, I'm not saying we ignore it, but I'm saying we look at it in a much bigger context about how this goes into our body. You know what I mean? And then if we look at statins, so most patients who come to me on a statin, they will say that they feel tired, they have brain fog, their muscles hurt, their overall feeling of wellness goes down. And honestly, they have horrible fatigue. And honestly, when I see a patient is on a statin now, it's never my job to take them on or off a medication. I have them work with their primary care. But as we improve their health and decrease their inflammation and all the things, they can often come off of them. And I always know it's going to be I don't want to say easy success, but I know how much better they're going to feel. Because yes, we're doing and creating the conditions for health, but I know as soon as they come off that statin, they're going to feel like $1,000,000. And sure enough, they do. And I want to help you guys understand why, because understanding why is important. When you take that statin drug, it's not only reducing cholesterol production, it is literally blocking CoQ10. That's why you often see on those commercials, or if you have a decent cardiologist, they're at least recommending you take CoQ10 supplement when you're on a statin. But you'd have to take a busload of CoQ10 because you're literally blocking it throughout your whole body. Now, CoQ10 is key, you guys. Now, I'm going to get a little nerdy on you for a minute here, but I want you to understand that CoQ10 is the last step in our electron transport chain, which is how we make energy in our body, how we make ATP. Do you guys remember that from science in high school? ATP, one molecule of glucose makes 36 ATP. Well, that whole process that's going through our body all the time to make energy, that last step requires CoQ10. So you're like, oh my gosh, well, if I'm blocking it with the statin, how am I making energy in my body? Thankfully, the body is brilliantly designed and we have a backup system. It's called the lactate dehydrogenase system. So you can still take one molecule of glucose and make ATP without CoQ10, but instead of 36 ATP, guess how many you're getting? 2. One molecule of glucose, 2 ATP. So now you're already aging. So your mitochondrial health, which is where all this is happening, is already decreasing, so you're already struggling a little bit with energy. Now you take a drug that's blocking the last step for you to make energy, so you have to use the backup pathway, which instead of making 36 wonderful molecules of ATP to run your muscles and your quads use them the most. That's why people get such leg pain. But so you instead of having 36 ATP, you're using this backup pathway that makes 2. Well, guess what else? Guess what the byproduct of is in the lactate dehydrogenase pathway? It's in the name, lactic acid. So now you're not only making way less ATP and energy, now your byproduct is lactic acid. So now your muscles and your body hurts even more because you're pumping out a bunch of lactic acid that you can't clear. Do you see how people often feel really bad on a statin? And instead they'll be like, oh, let's try this one versus like, no, my body's communicating with me that I should not be taking this, right? Or I need to do a life overhaul and help my body metabolically so that I don't need this, right? And so I want you guys to understand that's why people experience muscle aches, weakness, horrible fatigue, brain fog, because of what's going on cellularly and from biochemically, so you can understand. So my biggest concern isn't cholesterol. My biggest concern is that we've become so focused on a couple laboratory values that we stop asking why it became abnormal in the first place, or is it even abnormal? Who says that you have to be below 200 and you're going to be saved from cardiovascular disease and a heart attack? That's simply not true. There's plenty of people who die of heart attacks who had completely normal cholesterol. And there's so many people who have normal cholesterol and die of heart attacks. There's so much more to the picture. We have to ask, is there inflammation? Is the blood sugar elevated? Is there insulin resistance? How is the person sleeping? How is their stress? How is their nutrition? How are they moving their body? Because if we never address those questions, it just becomes about taking a drug for the rest of your life and being a forever customer. And I'll tell you what, if you start on a statin, within a few years, you're going to need metformin because that statin messes up so much with your cellular health. Now your blood sugar becomes dysregulated and you'll need the metformin. If you start on metformin, because metformin is so hard on the liver and messes with your liver and your cholesterol, if you start on the metformin, within 3 to 5 years, they'll be having you on a statin because now your cholesterol is messed up. It's not the way to heal your body. We need to do better. So I want you to know that if your cholesterol is elevated, one, how elevated is it? And is that just your normal, or is it actually a concern? What does your overall health picture look like? What are your other risk factors that are present? Don't panic and don't assume that cholesterol is the whole story. Have a conversation with your healthcare provider. Ask them questions. Look at your entire metabolic picture, because true health isn't about chasing a couple laboratory numbers. It's about understanding why your body may be sending signals in the first place and about creating those conditions for health. Also, sometimes people can have periods of high cholesterol if they had an injury or they have a sickness going on, because again, cholesterol, your body is always trying to help you. So what is it trying to protect? What is it trying to help you with? So the goal is to be informed here and to ask better questions. So I actually created a handout for you guys this week. And this handout includes some questions that you can ask your healthcare provider if you've been told you have high cholesterol or told you need a statin. So I've also included information about like additional testing you can ask for. Like if you're really concerned, like, do I have a plaque issue? You can run some of those other tests so you can get a more full picture other than just your total cholesterol and your LDL number alone is why you need to go on a statin. And so the reality is, you guys, not everyone with elevated cholesterol has significant plaque buildup or is going to have a heart attack issue. And not everyone with normal cholesterol has clean arteries, is in the clear, because we have to look at the whole picture. So the question isn't simply, is my cholesterol high? The better question is, do I actually have evidence of plaque or cardiovascular disease, or how is my overall metabolic health? And depending on your individual situation, there may be additional laboratory markers or imaging that can help you paint a much more complete picture of your cardiovascular risk. And those are the conversations worth having with your healthcare provider. The goal is not to ignore cholesterol. That's not what I'm saying. But the goal is to understand your body more completely and make decisions based on your overall health, not just a laboratory number. So if you guys would like a copy of this week's handout that I created to help you have that conversation with your healthcare provider, comment cholesterol on my Facebook post today under Wellness Wednesday, and we'll be sure to get it to you. Or you can email info@drlinzi.com. That's info@drlinzi.com, and we'll get that over to you. Because the more informed you are, you guys, the better questions you can ask, and the better questions you can ask, the better decisions you can make about your health, right?
Yep. Hey, I want to interject. I always, my experiences. Here's just real quick.
Yeah.
10 years ago, when I was in the corporate world, they always make us get a blood test.
Yep.
To qualify for your insurance.
Yep.
And my cholesterol is 250, your average that you talked about.
Yep.
And the doctor says, "Oh, you need a statin." Well, I'm a holistic type of guy.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't take any prescriptions. I take over the counter, a couple knee joint, things.
Yeah.
What I did to lower my cholesterol was,
Yep.
I lowered my carb intake because I'm a sugaraholic.
Yep.
And I continued weightlifting, which I have always. And it went from I lost 40 pounds.
Amazing. Yeah. Good job.
And my cholesterol went from 250 to 200 with no meds.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And to take that sugar out, because, and I'm sure your triglycerides came right down with it.
Yeah, the other part, I don't, all those other things.
Other numbers.
I don't know what those are, but I know my cholesterol
came down. Yes. And that is a beautiful thing. Like, your body responded. It probably did need a bit less of that sugar. Because yes, sure, we don't want too many saturated fats, but the fats get also get villainized, but so much it's the sugar.
Right.
It's the sugar that creates the issue. And what will come down when you make changes like that is your triglycerides as well, because triglycerides is like the fattiness of the blood. And if you have super high cholesterol and high triglycerides and inflammation and blood sugar issues and extra weight, yes, you are creating the perfect little soup to make plaque. But if you get those triglycerides down like your diet likely did, and you move your body and you cut that sugar out, like, you are doing all the things to decrease your risk. And then you're not going to wake up feeling like crap every day taking that medication, because, so now your risk may go down, which if you look at the studies, it's not I don't quite, but the studies that they have that say, oh, maybe it will help. Okay, but you're waking up every day. You can't even move because your quads hurt so bad and your muscles hurt so bad and you have massive brain fog and you have no energy. Okay, what's the point of that? You're not going to have the energy to cook good food. You're not going to have the energy to move your body. And so now you're definitely increasing. You're not going to have your muscles hurt. You can't work out. So now it's creating a situation where you are literally making yourself worse because you can't engage in the activities that are what actually promote health.
Yep.
So great job. I'm so happy for you. That's so good. And I see it all the time too. Like you take 3 months, you make some of these simple changes, you no longer have a problem.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I do have a couple patients who just like, even when we do all the right things and all the things we mentioned, and they're still at like 220, 230, or, even 250, like my dad with that, then it's worth talking like, okay, let's do a calcium score. Let's do some of these other markers just to see what my overall risk is. And so often, every time, the patients come back and their calcium score is like almost 0. They have no plaque. It's like, so why would you put yourself at risk for being metabolically less healthy with the use of a statin when you're not even truly at risk?
Big pharma.
Right. Exactly. It's a little bit sad. So I usually would get mad about it and really mad. And then like, okay, instead of getting mad, okay, let's find a solution. We have to educate. People need to become empowered with information so that they can ask their, and I will tell you guys, if your doctor gets cranky with you for asking questions about your health or gets cranky that you want to make lifestyle changes so you don't need the medication, I think you need a different doctor. And you need to get somebody in your corner who's going to support you being an active role in your health and support you wanting to do better so you can have less medication. That is a red flag right there. You shouldn't feel nervous to have these conversations with your doctor. You're not questioning your doctor's intelligence, or you're concerned about your physical body and how you're going to age, and you have every right to ask questions. I just don't think we need to be in the era anymore of, my doctor said I need to take this, I'm just going to do it because he said, and I fall in this box of what the guidelines are for cholesterol. No. We're all individuals. And it's okay, and you have every right to ask those questions about your health. And if somebody is going to give you a hard time or make you feel bad or talk down to you, you need a different person in your corner to help you with your health, right?
Yep. I would
Yes.
choose Dr. Linzi.
Well, thank you. And I still always encourage people to have a primary care in their corner, because in the state of Michigan, I can't act as a primary care, but there are some really good ones that work with me, that we work together. We work on things to make sure that, I always want to make sure the patient is doing the right thing for their health and most responsibly. But so often we don't need all of these different interventions, right? Yeah. So I want to thank everyone for joining in today. And remember to take great care of yourself, because your health truly is the one greatest investment you'll ever make. And so if you guys are feeling like you're needing help or support on this journey, you're more than welcome to reach out. Get started with the Total Health Restoration System. Get your numbers healthy. Get your body healthy. And you guys can email info@drlinzi.com. That's info@drlinzi.com. You can also go to my Facebook page, Linzi Say Larson. That's Linzi, and then say S as in Sam, AIGH Larson, LARSEN, and communicate on there as well. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.